All right. So hi, everybody. I'm Lissy, and I am going to just hand it off to Kate right away. Thanks for your patience while I had my technical difficulties. So Kate, take it away.
All right, thank you. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Kate Cleveland, and I am a mother of two not so little ones. But when they were little, we used to hang out at Family Strengths Network all the time. I'm also a member of the board of directors for Family Strengths Network, and I just wanted to point that out because I found it to be a really incredibly fun and rewarding way to give back to a place that I loved so much, gave me so much when I needed it most. And if anybody is interested in ever talking more about what the board does or interested in joining, I'm happy to chat with you. Let me know. The reason I'm here talking to you today is that I'm also a certified health coach and creator of Kiss Your Food. And through that, I help families keep and build habits, habits that increase physical, mental, social, and emotional health. So when the lovely ladies came to me, the lovely FSM ladies, that is, came to me with this loaf on a couch idea, I immediately thought of a lesson that I learned during my coaching certification. And today I'm honored to share part of that lesson with you. Before we launch into that, however, I would like to invite you to join me in a short exercise. Some of you that joined us last month might recognize this as it's something that I learned from Christine Koblenz, but it's just to take 3 collective breaths and kind of bring ourselves to the present moment, bring ourselves here together, and maybe it'll help calm my nerves a little bit because I'm pretty nervous. So to start out, find a comfortable spot to sit and close your eyes if you would like. Feel free to turn off your camera if you feel more comfortable that way. Take a deep inhale through your nose and feel the air flowing deep into your belly. And then exhale slowly through your mouth as you feel your feet on the floor or your high knee in the chair. Inhale again, giving yourself permission to be here. And exhale out any current stresses or worries you might have. Finally, inhale for a 3rd time, bringing in light and good energy. And exhale slowly as far as you possibly can. Open your eyes when you're ready and breathe according to your natural rhythm. Hey, look at that. It calmed my nerves. How are you guys feeling? So before I start up the slides, I just wanted to say 3 quick things. So I did make a slideshow, but I don't want you all to feel like this is a presentation. I would love it to be more of a conversation. This is a really casual environment, so come and go as you please and as you need to. Feel free to ask questions either in the chat or just interrupt me. I tend to talk fast once I get going, so if I say something and you missed it, feel free to ask me to repeat it or back up a little bit if you need me to. That said, let's keep this a safe space where we can all share without the fear of feeling judged or disrespected. I don't anticipate getting into anything super deep, but I always like to put that out there just so that we can keep it kind and respectful. And then as much as I would love to tell you to turn off any distractions and focus on yourself for our time together, I get that we're all dealing with multiple things right now. And unfortunately, kids don't come equipped with a mute button. I understand that. So if you get distracted, that's, like I said, casual environment, totally fine. The reason I bring this up is just come back. If you find yourself distracted, take the time you need, but feel like you can come back and join us as you're ready. Okay, so let's get to it. As I said, the theme here is gentle ways to help us feel less like loaf on a couch. And I get that the plural of loaf is loaves. I was trying to make a play on words, but it's been brought to my attention that I'm not as funny as I think I am. So I apologize for any grammar police out there. I was trying to be humorous. Anyway, let me share my screen. It's not letting me share. Oh, there it is.
I made you a co-host hoping that would make it automatically.
For some reason, the little window for my PowerPoint didn't pop up, but now it's here, so no problemo.
Cool.
All right, can everyone see that? Sweet. Okay, so my goal here is to just present some of the science and then some easy to implement ideas and ways to increase overall health and happiness given the current circumstances. Lissy, my chat box disappeared, so if anybody has any questions, feel free to interrupt me and let me know what those questions are, please.
Will do.
Thanks. So it's no secret that, oops, come on, slides. It's no secret that the COVID-19 pandemic has changed many, many things about our lives. In my family, I know that it has changed the way we eat in a multitude of ways. The way I dress most days. Hello, sweatpants? Anyone else? I, for one, definitely move my body less than I used to. And I'm not just talking about lack of intentional exercise, although for me, I compile that on as well. We've had to figure out new ways to learn alongside of our kids and in our own lives, like just now when we couldn't hear each other. And above all, it's changed the way we interact within our homes and with the outside world. For better, for worse, but mostly worse, these changes affect people in different ways. But I think we can all agree that it's impacted our overall health from every single angle imaginable. But I'm not here to bring you down or make you sad. I'm not here to make you aware of these things. You're well aware of them. I only bring this up to point out that despite all of this, despite everything that we're already dealing with day in and day out, there are some simple and easy to implement things we can do for ourselves. I promise none of these will take up too much time or be too difficult, but these little habits, these little routines can make a big impact on our health and happiness, and also on our patience levels, which ultimately will help everyone around us. This brings me to my all-time favorite saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. I know all of you have probably heard that before, but it's always good to have a reminder. Hopefully being here today, participating and learning is a cup filler for you, but by the end, I hope that together we can generate some real applicable ideas to help each other get there and to keep getting there on a regular basis. Before we dive into ideas though, I want to get a little bit nerdy for a minute and teach you a bit about the science of habit formation. There are two reasons I want to share this with you. Number one, because I think it's really cool and I think you might too. And also because understanding the why is really helpful in something like this. By looking under the hood, you can learn and understand how your brain processes information. I got this looking under the hood idea from a friend and colleague of mine named Tessa, and I just really like the visual of that because especially that little picture, it just helps me visualize looking at my brain and understanding the why so that I can ultimately help myself with the how. With this understanding, you can then work with your brain to help build new habits, release unwanted habits, and strengthen helpful habits. I have a short video to share with you now, which was also shared with me by Tessa, and it explains the concept of neuroplasticity. It's only 2 minutes long, so I'm going to stop sharing for a second and then share the other screen, and then I'll come back to this when it's done.
Not so long ago, many scientists believed that the brain did not change after childhood, that it was hardwired and fixed by the time we became adults. But But recent advances in only the last decade now tell us that this is simply not true. The brain can and does change throughout our lives. It is adaptable, like plastic. Hence, neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. How does neuroplasticity work? If you think of your brain as a dynamic, connected power grid, there are billions of pathways or roads lighting up every time you think, feel, or do something. Some of these roads are well-traveled. These are our habits, our established ways of thinking, feeling, and doing. Every time we think in a certain way, practice a particular task, or feel a specific emotion, we strengthen this road. It becomes easier for our brains to travel this pathway. Say we think about something differently, learn a new task, or choose a different emotion. We start carving out a new road. If we keep traveling that road, our brains begin to use this pathway more, and this new way of thinking, feeling, or doing becomes second nature. The old pathway gets used less and less and weakens. This process of rewiring your brain by forming new connections and weakening old ones is neuroplasticity in action. The good news is that we all have the ability to learn and change by rewiring our brains. If you have ever changed a bad habit or thought about something differently, you have carved a new pathway in your brain and experienced neuroplasticity firsthand. With repeated and directed attention towards your desired change, you can rewire your brain.
What do you think about that? Pretty fascinating, huh? Okay. Are there any questions about that? Okay. So what does neuroplasticity have to do with habit formation? Well, as I said before, understanding the why helps with the how. And I just really like that visual of a road being traveled more frequently as we develop new habits. Sometimes these new roads become worn in without us even realizing it, as an artifact of just life in general or situations that get thrown at us, like a pandemic. And sometimes we don't even realize it's happening. We find ourselves in unwanted habits, repeated, undesired routines. This can happen in any aspect of our lives, just our day-to-day, relationships, work, and parenting. So then what? And it's not letting me click again. Okay, so then what? Well, becoming aware of something like the habit loop can really help us change those unwanted habits into something more healthy for us and for our families. The habit loop is a neurological loop that governs any habit. It has three parts, so when I think of it, I always picture the recycle sign for some reason. So here we go. The phrase and idea were coined and explained by Charles Duhigg. He has a book all about it if you care to get into more detail, but for today, I just want to give you a short summary. The habit loop consists of three elements, which I'm going to walk through kind of fast, and then we'll break it down with a more concrete example. The three elements of the habit loop are the cue, the routine, and the reward. Each of these is crucial to habit formation, and each of them strengthen the others, which is the reason it's a loop. Simply put, the cue is anything that triggers the habit. Think of those as things you already do throughout your day without even thinking about it. An example from an author named James Clear, who wrote another helpful book on this topic called Atomic Habits. His example is waking up for the day usually triggers a cascade of habits. Going to the bathroom, taking a shower, brushing your teeth, getting dressed, making a cup of coffee. Think about your morning routine. Or in the current situation, it might be waking up and changing from your nighttime pajamas into your daytime pajamas. The routine is the behavior you wish to either change or reinforce. Examples of this are to drink more water or to practice mindfulness. The reward is the reason your brain decides the other two elements are worth remembering and repeating in the future. It's what keeps the cycle going and keeps your habit change sustainable for the long haul. It's worth noting here that this is not typically an external reward. So often in our society, the word reward is associated with something tangible that you receive or give yourself for completing a task. But this is more of an intrinsic change in the way our brain decides priorities. For example, if you drink more water, your skin feels better because you're more hydrated. So then your brain clues into that. Or if you get a full 8 hours of sleep, you feel refreshed in the morning, and then your brain understands that it's worth getting that extra sleep. As we learned in the video, that is truly what the essence of habit formation is: retraining and rewiring your brain by creating those new grooves and then going over them time and time again. That's still a lot to digest, so let's walk through an example. One that I've worked hard to incorporate into my life due to some medical issues that I'm working on. Anyway, in this example, my desired habit is to stretch for 10 minutes every day. Well, if I'm honest, I should be stretching more often than that, but for the sake of this example, let's just say once a day. In this case, I'm wanting to implement a new habit, but you will see how it can be applied to changing or breaking undesired or healthy habits as well. So now I have a question for you. Keeping in mind that the cue is what triggers the habit or behavior, and also remembering that this whole process works much easier if it's tied to something that we're already doing, what are some possible cues that I could tack that to from your own lives? In other words, what are some things you do every day that if you were trying to develop this habit, you could piggyback it onto? Anybody?
I try to add things into cooking dinner. Like while I'm standing at the stove, in between stirring, you can stretch. I do squats.
That's a great idea. I like that. Anybody else? The next part of this loop is the routine. So that, once again, is the behavior that you're trying to change or reinforce, or the habit. So in this case, that would be the stretching for 10 minutes every day. For this specific example, as I said, we're trying to build up a positive habit, but remember that it works the same way with trying to diminish negative habits and replace them with better choices. And I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. So finally, the last step is the reward. So what are some possible ways that my body rewards me or Lissy's body rewards her when we do our stretches or our squats or whatever it might be?
The first reward is pain.
That is true with the squats.
Especially if we're talking about squats.
Actually, I'm going to go the opposite of that, because if I don't do my stretches, I know I feel more pain. But squats are another story.
So I feel that I get a sense of accomplishment out of when I do something that's part of my routine that involves the stretching my limit or going for a walk, or I try to walk every single day, no matter how cold it is. And sometimes it's very hard, much harder than it should be to get out there and do it. But it gives us a sense of accomplishment, a sense of satisfaction afterwards.
I love that. And that's exactly the point what I was trying to make earlier about not having it be a tangible reward, right? You want it to be that feeling, that sense of accomplishment, all the good hormones that are flowing in your brain. That's your reward in and of itself. And that helps with the neuroplasticity and helps carve out those grooves. So thank you for saying that. So because you have that positive reinforcement, then the next time the cue comes around, you're more likely to jump into it. Even though it might be hard because it's cold, you know that you're going to have that reward at the end. And that's what keeps that habit loop going. So does that make sense how the habit loop works? And also how it overlaps with this concept of neuroplasticity. I really like that visual. I know I already said that, but how every time you drive down the road of a new habit, it becomes more loved and well worn in. So are there any questions about these ideas and how they overlap? So before we move on, it's important to point out a few keys to success when it comes to this retraining or rewiring your brain. We're focusing on creating positive habits today, but I mentioned a couple times that it can be used to break unwanted habits as well. So a couple things, it's extremely important when doing that part, especially to keep it positive. Neuroplasticity works best when the new pathway you're carving in your brain is focusing on what you do want, not on breaking a habit. It's also important to not use the word try, and for you Star Wars fans out there, to channel your inner Yoda, do or do not, there is no try, but to just phrase your desired habit or change in the affirmative. In other words, if your unwanted habit is eating a candy bar every single afternoon, you don't want to focus on not eating a candy bar every single afternoon. Instead, you want to say things like, I will choose a healthier afternoon snack. It's a better way to think about it, and it actually saying it out loud helps solidify it into a different part of your brain too. I just love this kind of stuff. Sorry, I'm going to nerd out again for a minute. So, oh, sorry, I got lost for a second. The other key to success in this way is to give yourself patience and time. Those roads that you currently have in your brain have taken a long time to establish, and they're pretty well traveled. They will fill in as the other grooves get deeper, but it will take patience and time. Okay, well, as much as you love hearing about my stretching habits and my pain, it's time to make this applicable to you in your lives, and specifically routines and habits that can increase health and happiness during this pandemic. So remember how I promised how this wouldn't just be another set of tasks to add to your never-ending to-do list? Well, I meant it. First, I want to share a few simple and easy things you can do that are scientifically proven to increase health, happiness, or even both. The best part is they don't take up much time in the day at all. And now that you're armed with the knowledge of how habit formation works, it will be easier to incorporate one or two of them on a regular basis. Don't feel like you have to jump in and do all of these tomorrow and the next day. If you even take one away from this and try one today, then that's a win. These will just be a few to get your creative juices flowing, and then I would like to open it up for anyone else who'd like to share. So as I'm going through these, be thinking about your daily routines. Like Mara just shared, she likes to go walking every day. Maybe even jot some down as we're going through them, and then you can talk about maybe some tiny habits or parts of your routine that help you feel less like a loaf on a couch and could potentially help other people that are here today as well. So the first one I want to talk about is getting outside every day for at least 10 minutes. Getting outside has countless benefits. Studies have shown that our brain chemistry can change for the better in even only 10 minutes. Exercise is good, and nature walks and hikes are amazing, but we all have those days when we're just not feeling it, and that's okay. Our brain chemistry can change from just being outside in the natural light, breathing the fresh air. We don't really even have to do anything. Sit, stand, whatever, just be. The physiological and psychological benefits of hugs are immense, but when we're seeing the same few people and the same four walls all day, every day, sometimes the all too important embrace goes out the window. Consider making hugging each family member part of your morning routine or your evening routine, or maybe both. The same goes for kind words and compliments. It's too easy to forget to give those when we're stuck at home. Hey mom, I like your yoga pants and hoodie combo again today. Doesn't exactly have the same ring to it as the compliments I got this morning when I put on a sweater and put on earrings. But what about little things that don't have to do with appearance? Like, wow, kiddo, you're being really creative with your imagination today. Or, hey honey, you're always so patient with the kids. Find something you admire about someone in your life and tell them. No strings attached, no ulterior motives, and definitely no fake sentiments, but real, heartfelt, genuine compliments give you a boost of good brain hormones, and they raise the other person's self-esteem as well. So it's a win-win. Gratitude journaling is really big right now, and rightfully so. Expressing gratitude can also boost good brain hormones. In fact, expressing gratitude on a regular basis has been shown to have a snowball effect. The more you do it, the more you're inclined to do it. And it's contagious. If journaling is your thing, more power to you. But if it's not something you care to get into, don't tune me out quite yet. No one says you have to take a pen to paper in order for this to work. Keep it simple and more contagious, and incorporate verbal expressions of gratitude into your family routine. At the dinner table, or maybe at bedtime, take a minute to just reflect on the day and talk about one thing or maybe two things that you're grateful for, and get that habit loop spinning. For those of you who were able to attend the speaker series event last month on mindfulness, you probably already know more about this than I'm going to say. And for those that weren't, I highly encourage you to go check it out. Christine Koblentz did an amazing job. You can watch the replay on FSN's YouTube channel, which when I was practicing this for my mom, I went through this whole spiel about brain science and everything. And then at the end, she said, I learned something. FSN has a YouTube channel. I like to think maybe she learned more than that, but who knows?
That's awesome.
Christine gave us a handful of quick, easy, and incredibly beneficial activities to incorporate mindfulness into our lives. But in short, spending even just 2 minutes noticing your environment with all 5 senses can really get those brain chemistry, good hormones flowing. And it can be really fun, especially with kids. The next one I want to mention is possibly not as easy to incorporate as the others, but bear with me. Setting a consistent bedtime along with good pre-bed hygiene routine is not just important for kids. The advantages span from the physical to the mental health space and beyond. Physically, it helps your body regulate circadian rhythms and control stress hormones, among other things. It helps your brain secrete the correct hormones at the appropriate times for deeper sleep, which, as you probably know, makes you feel more rested and alert in the morning. Perhaps someday I'll do a class on this in the future and delve a little bit deeper, but for today, I just advise you to try it out. Notice I didn't say you have to get a certain amount of sleep because everybody's different in that regard, but just setting a consistent bedtime, try it out for a week or two and see if anything changes in your life. So there are probably zillions more that I could go over, but I wanted to open up the floor with the little bit of time we have left. So the last one for me comes with another short science lesson. Take a minute to take 3 deep breaths regularly throughout the day. Similar to how it helped us come together at the beginning, this technique moves your nervous system away from the fight or flight, high stress, constant go, go, go lives that we lead, and it moves it into the parasympathetic, which is also known as the rest and digest nervous system. It calms stress hormones, decreases heart rate and respiration, but the coolest part for me is it also stimulates digestion and activates your metabolism. So if you get into the habit of taking 3 deep breaths right before you eat, it actually helps you digest better and absorb more nutrients from the foods that you're eating. How cool is that? So I'm done taking up all the talking space. What about you? What are some simple things you do for yourself to help you feel less loafy that others here might benefit from knowing?
So Kate, if you don't mind, I'll go first because I have to leave in 5 minutes.
Don't mind.
To go pick up my babies. They're doing in person. Hi, I'm Katie, by the way. I came to the last month and I loved it. So I was super excited to come today. So Kate and I have been working for a little while as my coach, and I absolutely love her. She's amazing.
Thank you.
One thing that we're working on more recently is I have 3 kids. I'm a full-time caregiver for my father, and we live in a household of 6. And so my life is not quiet by any means. So just consciously making dinner decisions. So like before, I think we said 3 o'clock or 5 o'clock. I make a decision of what is going to be made for dinner. so that I don't have to think about it at 5 o'clock when we're rushing, because then it comes the 7 o'clock dinner time. So just consciously making those decisions earlier in the day, and then doing like a meal prep list is something that we worked on. It really does make a difference in getting my kids to eat at a decent time. And then it kind of rolls into bedtime routine, and then getting them to bed at a more decent time. Then when I don't have ideas prepped, or I don't have a plan for the evening. And so that's a habit that is really helping me, because then I land up going to bed at a better time, and it just kind of affects everything. There's a kind of a domino effect of good decision making. And so I appreciate that a lot. And we're working on it. I'm not saying we're at 100% yet, but it's something that has really helped me stay in control of the evening, so that I don't go into me going to bed really late, and then again that rolls over into waking up late, and kind of keeping it a good schedule for us. So that's something we're working on.
That's so cool, Katie. Thank you so much for sharing that. I know that it's been fun to kind of see the changes that have happened in your life just as a result of, like you said, the domino effect that creates, and that's awesome.
I love you. I'll see you guys. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for coming. I think that one of the things that people, one of the misconceptions about habits is, like she said, we're not perfect, we're working on it. But one of the misconceptions is that it's never going to be perfect, right? It's never going to be, yes, there are some habits that we probably do every day. Hopefully we brush our teeth every day, and hopefully, we eat and use the bathroom and things like that. But with regard to overall health, I think that's one thing that's important to point out, that it's not ever going to be this perfect view of, habit formation that everybody seems to have held to this high esteem. It's just getting into those habits one small bit at a time, so that then once part of that, one small thing you pick, and then you can kind of add to it, or you can adjust it depending on what happens in your life, or, changes that occur. So that's one thing, I guess, to keep in mind. Yeah, Mara, did you have something?
I just wanted to say, I think what you said about you and Katie both said about the domino effect of meal prep, and thinking about what you're going to do for your meal, because it seems like our evening meal, whether it's literally thrown on the table or served up in front of the TV or whatever, set up nicely, it seems to be the point of the day where the three people in our home right now come together. We come away from our computers, away from whatever. And so I find that if I do plan earlier in the day, whether it's stick something in the crock pot and just that it's ready, then it means that I, instead of going from 6 in the morning till sometimes 10 at night in front of my computer, I'm more likely to stop and sit with the people in my home right now, which is the only place I get to be unless I'm walking the dog, that it just gives us a time where I don't feel guilty about being away from my screen. I don't, there's a whole bunch of domino things here. Also, the not grazing the refrigerator, looking for something to drag out for everybody, and just having something that's more thawed out, and maybe even add a fresh vegetable to it. I think the domino effect is really big, and I think that's the same for a lot of the suggestions you brought up, going back to the compliments and the hugs and the other things that you brought up, the fresh air outside. It all each one affects the other. I think I have a lot of notes here from this is really good, I think. So.
Great. Thank you for sharing. And I agree about the meal planning. And, people hear the term meal planning and think that it has to be this long, extensive, drawn out process. And it really doesn't. And that's one thing that I've been trying really hard to work on my clients with, or work with my clients about, is that do what works best for you. Some people thrive in that environment where they have the whole month planned out for, you know, what meals they're going to eat. And my college roommate, ever since she and her husband got married, they have a whiteboard on their fridge, and every meal for the next month is planned out in detail. And it's admirable, but that doesn't fit my lifestyle. And so I think just thinking ahead, even just a little bit, to, pull something out of the freezer the night before, or, you know, grab, you know, one thing I like to recommend is if you're prepping, you know, say whatever you're making for dinner needs, you know, carrots, and you're peeling and cutting carrots, cut a couple extra so that tomorrow when you feel snacky because you're sitting in front of your computer all day, you can make that, you know, little tiny better choice. And it's funny that it came back to food, because when Lissy and I were brainstorming about this topic, she's like, well, you've already kind of talked about food, so let's go different. But it affects everything. It really does. Carrie?
I could swap a little bit. I was just thinking about, like, when you asked the question, like, what are you doing? I felt like so many of our habits at our house still have us sitting on the couch, but not in a bad way. And so I was like, how do I share that? I think when we first came together, I was really disenfranchised with the fact that me and my spouse and my senior daughter were all in the same house, but so disconnected. Like, how could we be in the same physical space and be so disconnected? And so some of the things that we've done, our meals are going better. Like, that's been nice. But also we started, even though we're a little bit older, we started reading books together in the evenings, or a silly thing like we've been watching Avengers on a consecutive timeline from beginning to end. And so, we're sitting on the couch, but we're excited every night when we're like, okay, what are we watching tonight? And so those kinds of habits have been just real nice in a way for connecting with my family who was here, but didn't seem connected.
And all that comes back to that mental health aspect that, you know, and social emotional health that so many of us are struggling with exactly what you just said, is that kind of coexisting instead of enjoying our time together, and, you know, taking for granted the fact that we aren't used to just seeing each other all the time. There's so much togetherness. But keeping it fresh. And I love that. Thank you for sharing, Carrie.
I think the going outside thing is important to mention, that children need that too, because, oh my God, if my kids can't go outside in a day, like, I'm going to throw them out the window to get them outside, because they make me crazy. They make each other crazy. They even make the dogs crazier sorry if y'all noticed me, like, I was getting bit, so I had to play with the dog for a minute. But they have to go out. They have to have that time outside. And even if it's just 10 minutes, they come back in and they're like more human, less crabby.
It's true. And my two tend to have less of those moments where they're crabby moments with each other, and not even the fighting so much, but just the little misunderstandings and things like that. And, you know, I notice it in myself too, if I don't get outside, and I've been really bad about that lately. I need to get back into that little habit. For a while, we were going on walks every day at 1:00, because the kids finished up with school. And then on the days when Matt's been going in, maybe my spouse has been going in maybe 3 days a week-ish to the lab, but on the days when he's here, he joins us. And for those of you who don't know, my parents live with us too, so it was nice because we didn't all walk together because we all walk at different paces, but we would just get out together and then disperse and then, you know, come back on our own and stuff. So that's one thing that we've let slide lately. That's my goal, actually, in all of this, saying that out loud. My goal is to get back into the routine and habit of that. It helps a lot.
The worst for me is the moments when I walk outside and I'm like, when was the last time I was outside?
Yeah. I've been there.
Looking forward to spring and the time change.
Yes.
I have something to share. I'm Kathy, if anybody doesn't know me. Talking about going outside. So I'm grandma. I watch up to 5 of my grandkids, usually 3 to 4 or 5 at a time. And they love going outside no matter what. It could be blizzard -0 and they want to go out. So they're like, well, why don't you want to go out, Grandma? And I'm like, well, it's too cold. I have to be super careful to not let my feelings about going outside in inclement weather. I don't want to teach them that that going outside is a bad thing. I just have to, be positive about my choices and say, I'm not going to go out now, I'll go out later or whatever. But I have to be careful to say, oh, it's too cold, we're not going to go out and play, because they don't care. They want to go out and play no matter what. So, and always, if I do go outside, of course, it's wonderful and I get a lot out of it. So I'm also a veterinarian, and I used to counsel people to take their reptiles, especially iguanas, outside for 30 minutes a day for vitamin D therapy. It's the same for us. We need the sunshine to get our vitamin D therapy, and if not, we turn into couch potatoes. So thank you for the talk today.
Thank you for joining us, and thank you for sharing. That's another excellent benefit, especially in this area. When we get outside, we get our vitamin D generation going. I grew up in Oregon, where the vitamin D didn't happen as much because there were clouds and rain and all of that, but we still, it wasn't the bitter cold, but it was wet, and we still were out there jumping in the mud puddles. And my girls have been doing well, not lately because it's been sunny again, but there for a while when it was kind of rainy and drizzly and a little bit of snow here, they would take umbrellas out into the driveway and do umbrella dancing. So we don't have any umbrellas anymore that are not broken, but at least they were outside for a lot of the time, when ordinarily they probably would have said the same thing, like, oh, it's raining or it's cold. But I'm guilty of that too, Kathy. I'll be like, no, it's too cold. And then I'm thinking in my head, just do it. You should do it anyway.
All right, so I have a question for you, Kate. So my thing that I need to be working on is I have the diastasis, the separation in my abdomen that from 2 kids stretching out my belly even more. And so I know all the exercises I need to do. I just really suck at doing them. Normally, in normal times, my exercise incentive is like, okay, if I get better at this, I'm gonna do better when I'm skating for roller derby. But right now we can't do that. And so my incentive is gone. And I know that there's an incentive of in a few months we'll get to skate again, but that's not enough to keep me going. I'm like, do you have any suggestions when your incentive is down the road and not something that you can see right now?
I guess go back to those intrinsic feelings of, the reward, and try to incentivize it differently. Think about, the short term, I'm trying to think of how to word it, you're building up to something, right? And so incentivizing it that way, if I can do, say 20 glute bridges today, then tomorrow I'll do 25. And then maybe by the time you get to the point where you can skate again, you're building up to the point where you're doing, I don't know how many you're supposed to be doing, or if that's even one of the exercises you're supposed to be doing, but totally. I know a little bit about that situation.
That's one of the hard things, is I have to clear off the carpet and lay down and take up the whole middle of the living room floor and look ridiculous, and my children laugh at me and my dog chews on my hair. But Yeah, that's a good, like, trying to challenge myself. That's a good, like, get a higher number. I like that.
Yeah, and especially because, you know, you're not going to be able to just jump into as many as you're probably supposed to be doing if you haven't been doing them lately. So, you know, incentivize yourself little incrementally, and so then by the time your big reward comes around, hopefully sooner than later, then you'll be able to be there. And the other thing that I would recommend is maybe setting up some kind of, I know I said that it's not typically a tangible reward, but since you don't have that incentive appropriate right now because of the given situation, maybe set up some kind of a, you know, a tangible reward for yourself, some kind of a healthy, of course, not a candy bar.
So I saw something a couple of 3 weeks ago. I took a fall here at the house, and so I tore the cartilage in my side around towards my back, and so it was really affecting my walking because I could only walk like a quarter of what I had been walking, and so I was really getting more down than I had been. So I happened to see something that Becca Jones posted on Facebook. It was during one of the snow day kind of days, and somebody said, well, what kind of a day is it today or something? And she said, it's a do your best day. We're all doing our best. And so I've tried to keep that in my head on the days that I get really discouraged, and that, you know, I think that's what we all have to be looking at, Lissy, is when, you know, all you can do is do your best towards that goal of getting out there. And if your best for that day didn't involve doing whatever you thought you should be doing, that's okay. You did your best for that day. And I think that's something that we all need to remember. Just because some women in town, or I say women, not in a sexist way, are posting pictures of their wonderful dinners and their hikes up in the hills and their, you know, their painting projects and their Wonder Woman stuff. It doesn't mean that that's what we all have to be doing. It just means that maybe our best for the day was cleaning out a drawer in the kitchen. You know, I mean, well, the fact that we're seeing it all on social media doesn't help, because you're only seeing their best days. Okay, you're only seeing their best moments. You're not seeing the days when they felt like they didn't even want to get out of bed. And I think that's what the big take I am getting from even Kate's list of things is, you just do your best. You know, maybe you can't hug everybody in the house today, but if you even hug one of them, or maybe you don't feel good enough to drum up a compliment for somebody, but try, you know, and I think it's all about doing our best with all of these things that matters, you know.
I love that. Do your best day. I like it.
Well, and yeah, it is true. There are days when you're like, all right, I am gung-ho and I'm doing things, and you get something done, you like clean your kitchen, and then like the next day it's like, okay, well, the kitchen's clean, but I don't care. I'm sure I have had a lot of the like, Mike comes in and he's like, are we having ennui today? Yes. Just go away. You go to work. I don't leave this house. Go to work.
I think one of the things that we are really great about is getting down on ourselves when we don't meet those goals, or our habit went awry, aside, didn't happen. One of the things, and I haven't been great about it lately, but I do celebration dances. When I am working on something at the end of the day, or when I make the accomplishment, I celebrate what I did, because maybe it's not hard for somebody else, but it was hard for me. And I know if I didn't accomplish it, I'm going to take time to tell myself, oh, you thug, you know, what, you didn't accomplish it. So I just think it's really important to celebrate our little victories.
I love that idea. And I love the fact that you pointed that out too, Carrie, because it is. And I mean, from a brain chemistry perspective too, like taking the time to acknowledge, hey, look what I just did. It gets those juices flowing and it gets you more excited to then jump into the next thing. And maybe not that day, maybe not that week, but the next time something comes around, you're like, you have the confidence now, you did it. And you're really right in the fact that we, as humans, we tend to point out when we fell short, when we didn't accomplish our goals, or we point out our flaws, but very rarely do we take the time to celebrate ourselves adequately. So I'm gonna incorporate that too, celebration dance.
I have like this vivid memory, and I'm not in great shape now, but there was a time when I was running half marathons, and the first time that I ran 10 miles on the corner of like Jeffrey and Rover, I did a dance and I looked up in the sky, and I'm sure I was like, woohoo! And this guy is like in his yard raking, just looking at me like I was odd, but it was a big deal.
That's awesome.
Definitely.
Thank you for coming, Mara. It was good to see you.
Yes, thanks for coming, everybody. I didn't do a celebration dance, but I had one stinking thing with skating. It was like a month before COVID started, and I'd been working for like a year and a half to do this one stupid one-footed glide on the foot that wouldn't behave. And when I finally did it for the distance you had to do, I threw myself down on the floor and screamed, and everybody, like, it was great because everybody piled on top of me. Now you couldn't do that, but it was spectacular. So I need to remember, like, I need to, post in my group and celebrate when I actually accomplish something.
And actually, that's a good point, is that accountability factor. And that might be something else that you could, another way to incorporate your incentive with whatever it is you're trying to do is like have, I don't remember. I've been in a couple of meetings with Christine lately, but I don't remember if she brought it up during the last month when she was talking about mindfulness, but she has this word called accountability buddy. And she said it's super cheesy, and it is, but it's really true. Like, I mean, listen, reach out to me, send me a text when you do your glute bridges or whatever your exercises are that you have to do, because that feeling of like, hey, I did this and I want to celebrate it. I get why people, like Mara said, are constantly posting all their happiness and wonderful everything on social media. Yeah. That's not reality, but I think it's important to share that and have those moments of like, yes, I did this.
I wanted to make one comment. I've been reading stuff lately about how the brain works and the neuroplasticity and why we always focus on the negative and beat ourselves up. Way back, evolutionary, it's the negative experiences that kept us alive. It's when the lion was chasing us and when we got hurt by something and when we, those are natural, normal survival techniques. And so our brain is already tending to, that's a bad thing, you got to fix it. And so just knowing that makes it easier to have, to recognize that we are always down on ourselves and we always want to do better. And just knowing that makes it easier. And then just changing our brain, saying, the positive thoughts also keep us alive and make us happy. So
that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I was actually just thinking when we were talking about that we needed to do some research and figure out why we do focus on the negative instead of the positive. So, but it makes total sense, especially when the way you put it with the lion.
Definitely.
That's awesome.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much. Thanks everybody for sharing. Thank you so much, Kate.
Yes, thank you for asking me to do this, and thank you everybody for your input. It was fun.
Awesome.